Welcome to the Studio Talk podcast. I'm Xiomara Sosa, your co-host. Every week, we speak to our community members to teach them about mental health through education and awareness, and our hope is to inspire them through social change advocacy. We also interview community members and other mental health professionals, clinicians, healers, students, and wellness professionals. Our style is storytelling. Everyone has a mental health story to tell. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute for seeking help from a licensed mental health professional and is not a substitute for psychological diagnosis or treatment. It's purely educational and purely social change advocacy. If you find yourself in any sort of mental health emergency or distress, please dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room. Welcome everyone to the X podcast, Real Conversations about Mental Health. This is episode number 30, and today's topic is sadly the Apalachee high school shooting and mental health. So we're going to talk about that. It's a heavy subject. We actually, Victoria and I, about a year or so ago, one of our first podcasts were about mass shootings and mental health versus mental illness, and we kind of talked about all the myths about that. So if anybody wants to go back and read that to get a clearer understanding about that, go ahead and do that. But today we're not going to dive into that. We're just going to kind of have a conversation, a very casual conversation about the whole thing, because it's heavy, it's hurtful, it's painful, and we're fucking tired. Like, we're just tired of it, right? Mm-hmm. So I am here with JRoc. Lisa is not here.
Hey.
Lisa is traveling, but we'll see her next time. So I am your host, clinical mental health counselor Xiomara Sosa. I'm a holistic and integrative women's mental health therapist. I'm a private practice owner, a national certified counselor, and a licensed professional counselor and clinical supervisor in South Carolina. I also run a nonprofit mental health co-op for mental health clinicians. So as a mental health clinician, I try to have real conversations about all things related to mental health here on the podcast. Right, JRoc?
That's right.
And even when we're having fun, we kind of always try to bring it back to that. And then we try to make light of the subject and we kind of goof off and everything. But today is sort of like not that kind of subject. Mm-hmm. So we probably won't be doing that. It'll be a little bit heavy. So if anyone feels like they might be triggered by any of this, we will be talking about trauma. We will be talking about children. We will be talking about these things that are painful and hurtful and can trigger. So take care of yourselves. Don't listen to the podcast if that's something that you need to be mindful of. And you probably noticed in our tone tonight that we're hurt. Mm-hmm. We're hurt, right? We're angry.
Yeah.
I'm fucking angry. What about you?
Oh my gosh. Just seeing this happen again. It's like, oh my, and we've marched about it, protested about it, voted about it. Yeah. And it's just like,
it's like it's so tiring. in the Twilight Zone episode that never ends.
Exactly.
It's insane. Yeah. And I'm telling you, so JRoc and I said, because we don't get political about this kind of stuff on air, that we're not going to get political about this stuff, but we do have our opinions about things. I'm going to try to stick to the pragmatic information, and I'm going to try to, apply the mental health component of it. But we're human beings,
right? And
we have our own things that go on in life, that we have issues and that might come out. But that's really not the purpose of this. So I just want to go over kind of what happened. So what happened? What happened was on September 4th, 2024, which is yesterday, at 9:30 a.m., a mass shooting occurred at Apalachee High School near Winder, Georgia, United States. 2 students and 2 teachers were killed, and 9 other people were injured. I read that and I just don't even know what to say. It's just so, Okay. So 2 teachers and 2 14-year-olds died. And then, of course, I forget what the number is of the other people who ended up going to the hospital and are injured. Do you remember? I know it's somewhere in the notes. I'll look it up and put it in the show notes, but it's close to 20 maybe.
Right.
I'll confirm that. But a lot of people were injured. A lot of people are in the hospital from the school, mostly or all students. So a little background. The FBI said that its National Threat Operations Center had alerted the local law enforcement in May of 2023 after having received anonymous tips about online threats to commit a school shooting to an unidentified location and time. This was in 2023. The agency said that within 24 hours, investigators had determined that the threats originated in Georgia. Sheriff's deputies, this is still 2023. Sheriff's deputies interviewed the boy who turned out to be the same boy that committed the mass shooting yesterday. They had interviewed the boy in 2023, and his father stated that he did have guns in the house, but the boy did not have unsupervised access to them. That's what was said in 2023. The boy, who at the time was 13 years old, denied making the online threats, and officials alerted local schools to continue monitoring the boy, which was happening, right? At the time, there was no probable cause for an arrest or to take any additional law enforcement action on the local, state, and federal levels. Because this is just a side note for me. Because to me, everybody's saying that I'm an old fogey because I think that the internet is a fucking toxic place for toxic people to, I don't know, think that their behavior
Right. They can just do what they want, say what they want, and no
we can say we can do, and it doesn't matter. It's like the wild, wild west.
Right.
And I feel like I'm bringing that up because I feel like the idea that he can even post all of that, and so whatever it is that he's doing and saying and that's getting out there, I don't know if it adds to it or if it doesn't add to it, but the exposure and the easy access just concerns me. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Or people using the internet like it's their therapy. Like if you're, and this is, sadly a young boy, but adults do this all the time. They'll get on the internet and they'll talk. They don't even know who the hell they're talking to. They're just talking into the damn camera.
Yeah.
Just exposing everything about anybody, themselves. And half the time when I'm listening to people, I'm like, I don't know who you think is listening to you. So even if you know the names of these people, they don't even know you.
Right.
Like they don't know you that way. Why are you talking to people who can't do anything for you? Go see a professional therapist and talk to them about this stuff.
Right.
Or a counselor or your pastor or a community leader, something, your grandmother. Right. I don't care.
Yeah.
But like the internet is just like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I know. No, I do.
So I don't know if he was trying to express his whatever feelings, emotions, or whatever he was going through on the internet. But the idea that would be
right
where when usually we would tell kids, if you're feeling these things, if you're having these things, go to your school counselor, go to your adult that you trust, go to your parent if you do have, because a lot of them don't have that.
Right.
Go to a trusted friend and their parent, something. Go to the local church, find anybody. That's what we would tell them. But instead, it's like, let me just get on the internet.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
No, I echo what you're saying, because there are people that I see on social media that I don't know at all, but they say everything. I'm just like, I know so much about you.
I know.
And I've never met you, because you're basically telling me everything, telling me you're upset about a certain person or a family member. I'm like, you might want to take this out, because when I see that, I'm like, ooh. And I think about it too with the young boy being so young. I just think about kids his age and younger, because obviously my age, I grew up before all this social media, internet, anything. So if I was ever going through something, at the time, it would be talking, like you were saying, talking to parents or friends, or even old school, a journal.
Yeah, the journal. Remember?
Journal, diary. It was like I would just write my thoughts in there, and it felt good to get it out. But it's like now the internet is just such a everyday thing.
It is the go-to.
It's the go-to.
It is the go-to. And I think for me, the thing that makes me curious is, like, even if they're just venting, even if they're just, whatever, like, who are you talking to? Like, literally, who are you talking to? Nobody that you should be talking to is actually the people that you're talking to. So they're either strangers or people that know who you are, and they're clearly not in your life present to help you if you need to go online to vent all of this stuff, when really you should be at home having coffee with this person.
Yeah.
Being able to have this conversation about this stuff that you're going through.
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong. There are other areas of the internet where people do find a non-toxic way to have support, to have people listen to them, to, where it's mature. It's it's meaningful and it's purposeful. But what I see is just, let me just spew. Let me just spew. Or I'm having a beef with somebody, so I'm just going to, like what happens to me, right? You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And like that whole ugly mess. So then what you have, when you did that, when this person did that to me, everybody that was on that page, first of all, they don't know me.
Right.
And I don't know them, so I don't give two shits what you say about me.
Right.
But you don't know what kind of crazy asshole is on there, which I got the hate and the whatever, because, just as a result, just from that little few days of this person spiraling and doing this bullshit online about me, instead of picking up the phone and saying, we need to talk.
Right.
I got to talk to you like two grown people.
Exactly.
Or you need to stop. Whatever. Like we have it out, we yell, we scream. But no, you go on. So if they're watching adults like that, normalize and I'm not just pointing out to this person. That is one example.
Yeah,
it happened to me, but I see it all the time. But in my case, it took an attorney to say, you're gonna get fucking sued if you don't take that shit down, and have an attorney contact me immediately because it's actionable.
Right.
And all I'm thinking about is can we just have some peace? And I'm not saying I don't say things on my personal page. I'm not saying that.
Right.
I don't do that.
Right.
That I don't do.
Yeah.
But also everybody on my page is vetted. There's like 88 people. They're all my family and my friends that I know, I talk to, I see, I talk to, I trust. So even if they try to respond in some kind of sideways manner about anything I post, which they don't, they would be booted out. I would boot them out. I would not encourage that. That's just not the world I choose to live in.
Right.
And this kid, bringing it back to this kid is like the idea that somebody saw something that he posted somewhere and then reported it, rather than somebody around him picking up on this, wondering about this, being concerned and being the ones reaching out to help him. This was in 2023. All right. So now, so at the time, law enforcement, there was no whatever, and they couldn't do anything. And, God help them because they have such a, people say a lot about law enforcement, but as far as I am concerned, we make their fucking lives hell too.
No, it's true.
Their hands are tied half the time. The other time you got the loose cannons. I mean, I've gotten to where I get it. Like I get one way or the other why they can't do something ahead of time, because who's to say how is that predictable? That could just be some kid saying something stupid online.
Right.
You know, and you don't want to ruin that guy's life, and you don't have what you need. They don't have what they need to arrest them on, and you don't want them harassed. So anyway. Right. All right. So when this thing happened yesterday, officers were on the scene within minutes of receiving the 911 calls. So they arrived at 9:20 a.m. local time. 2 officers assigned to the school immediately encountered the shooter, who's the boy that we were just talking about, and he immediately surrendered. The boy has been interviewed and spoke with investigators, I'm sure more than once at this point, while in custody. And no motive was identified from the time that I researched this, but I saw before we came to start recording that there was some new information out about it. They got the name and some other stuff. So no motive was identified yesterday, and no specific targets were identified, and then a visual. So this is what happened. So this is why we're doing the podcast today. So for people who are listening who don't know that that's what we're talking about, that's what we're talking about. So this was the 23rd U.S. school shooting of 2024. I'm going to say that again. The 23rd U.S. school shooting, that's just school.
It's crazy.
Shooting of 2024, which counts 11 dead and 38 injured so far this year, right? So I think that says a whole hell of a lot about this whole division that we have going on in this country, this whole polarization. Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, but where are the adults in the room that can get together and stop blaming this shit on mental illness? Because that's what they're going to start doing.
Of course.
And again, the research, the data, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit later, but we're not going to get into that because it's not debatable. But it is not, people like to say, oh, mental illness, he's messed up. That's not it. I wish that we can make it that easy where, that is not it. It's a very small percentage where that's even a factor. And I think also part of the problem is that people's idea of what mental illness is not what mental illness is. They think bad behavior and, being weird and having issues and is not mental illness. It's not mental illness, So there's a little bit of that going on, which is why. And then, of course, we have the powers that be that automatically, instead of taking accountability for this nonsense, the easiest thing to do is to say, oh, no, but even when they say that, then we have a mental health crisis in this country as it is, and you're not, and what are you doing?
Nothing's being done. Nothing's being done. It's, oh my
And when
goodness.
we ask for it, it's like, it's insignificant, unimportant.
Yep.
The insurance companies, the way that they're set up right now is like, don't even get me going.
Yeah, you already know.
So okay. Yeah. I'm going to go on. All right. So that was just sort of setting the stage. Me and Jason are going to stay nice and calm and non-political about this. So we're going to move on to what to watch out for, right? Because what we really want to talk about today is when these things happen, of course, then the hurt, right? The hurt, the outrage, the panic, all of the things, all the fallout that comes from that is what I see, right? As my profession, probably you in the community. I don't know about you, but my feeds have all been parents and mothers who aren't even involved in this, but they're so shaken by it, so upset with America, so everything, crying and upset and angry and saying things that are truthful, about things. So I just kind of want to reach out and say, we get you. We hear you. This is one of the things that mental health professionals deal with all the time. It's not just the quick news that comes on and the, oh my God, that's horrible. But then it's the aftermath of that we see. That's the stuff that we are always dealing with in one way, shape, or form. So what are some of the things to watch out for? What do you think are some of the things to watch out for when an incident like this happens? In children in particular.
Oh, in children.
Yeah, like if it's the children,
Oh, wow. Just the anxiety.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, if this can happen, and 14, freshman in high school. Right. And like you're in a new environment. I just imagine all the other newly freshman kids going into high school. High school is already scary. Yeah. It's like, I'm going to a brand new environment. This is my last 4 years of, the primary school. Yeah. I got to get everything together because if I'm going to do college or whatever job and how are you going to fit in? And now you already hear the bullies and things like this, but now you got to think about this now too. This is like, it's almost like you got your backpack and you got your safety plan and you got your, your practice, it's insanity, but So the thing about children, I used to do therapy with children and families, and I stopped doing that. And full disclosure is not because I don't want to treat kids, because I love the children. The problem is the adults that come along with them. So a lot of the times they're just symptomatic because the adults in their lives are not right, and they refuse to go do. So they just kind of dump their kids off to you, and they're like, here, fix them and give them back. And that's not the way it works. It's like, you guys need to go get it together, and you need to understand how you are affecting this person's development and why they are starting to go down this road. But most of the time, so I don't do children, but there are therapists and counselors who that's what they do. Those are their populations, and that's what they do. But we are all schooled on it. We're all trained on it. We all, if we have to do it, we do it. I've done a lot of DSS cases and a lot of things like that. So children, for the most part, are incredibly resilient. That is just by nature, they really are. And it's not just something to say about them. Their ability to overcome serious hardship is there. It is there. Yet they have things that they are fragile about. So it's like, this is not the norm for their resiliency. Their resiliency is, I got whatever happened in school and and then you teach them to build on their resilience. This is not normal. Like to try to say they should have a resiliency for something like this is ridiculous. They shouldn't, but it's their reality, right? So there's a little incongruency there. So, all right. So gun violence can have the impact on a child's mental health, especially if they're a witness to the event. I think that is what the big deal is. That is the most impactful thing, is like either they are witnessing it or experiencing it, or they were very close to it. That's the first sort of like stop that they're at. So, the trauma of it, the denial of it, the shock of it. And then when it starts to wear off is where you start looking for signs on what happens to them. So
what would be considered a typical reaction really ranges with everyone. And I really think it also kind of ranges with what they've already experienced. So if like someone's been, so like if a child's already had a trauma, if they've already dealt with things where their resilience is up, for example, if they've recently immigrated from a war-torn country or something, you know, like they're either going to be triggered or they're going to have the resilience, one of the two, depending on where the recovery is, depending on everything else that goes around. So we can't just make a blanket statement about all children respond this way and that's why, you know, it's just kind of different. But I think at the end of the day, we feel for them because they're innocent.
Yeah.
And we're the adults and this should not be happening to them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like there's that whole thing.
Right.
And there's, you go to school to learn that.
Yeah.
So a typical reaction to look out for if you have any children who have experienced something like this is changes in their mood, like wild changes in their mood, really, really obvious changes in their mood.
Yeah.
Some of these things could be extreme sadness, really exhibiting anger, you know, irritability, a low frustration tolerance, unable to sleep, having a lot of sleep disturbance. But when you think of kids, sometimes that's kind of
exactly. Yeah.
Wait a minute, you're talking about my nephew.
Yeah.
You know?
No, yeah.
But you want to look for it to be a little bit more pronounced, a little more obvious, and much more directed at the recent event. If you're looking at things that are like the nightmares and the scary dreams, the changes in their appetite, because these kids who experience traumatic events like the shooting, they're going to have a lot more trouble focusing. They're going to have trouble concentrating. They're going to be distracted. So how do you respond? It really depends on the age. It really depends on everything. But there's some general things that I think, and I think that your gut feeling is what? Like what, if it was your nephew, God forbid, what would be your gut feeling to want to do for a child? Oh. And there's no wrong answer.
Yeah, no. First thing, if it's like that, I want to be like, hey, I'm here. I want to take them out to school. Let me see if there's another school that's like more safe. I'm on edge. It's like I'm looking at the faculty, the staff, and I'm like, okay, come on now. Like this is what's going on. How did this happen? And yeah.
So your go-to is I'm going to keep this person safe.
Yep.
So that's it. You hit it on the nose. So what that looks like in practice is children look to adults who model the behavior that we want them to learn. So no matter what's going on with you about the situation, you can't lie about your feelings. You can't pretend that this is normal. You can't act like it's no big deal. You have to be honest about it, but you can't put that burden on them. You're modeling to them what you're doing in order to overcome this. So what you want to do is be honest about, this is scary. This is making us angry. We're feeling all these kinds of feelings, but you're going to be okay. I am here with you. We're going to do what we need to do to make sure that we are safe. Right now, you are safe. So you want to reassure them that for right now, they are safe, because that's the number one thing that they're feeling they aren't, right?
Right.
Their friends or, people their age, what's going on in the world. So you want to model that. So giving them a sense of safety in any way that you can, but not denying what they're feeling. So you don't want to say, don't be scared. Yes, be scared. This is a scary thing, but you're going to be safe. We're going to get through this together. You're not alone. All of us are scared. All of us are going to make sure that we look out for each other and don't perpetuate the sense of terror. Just don't do that, right?
Yeah, right.
Because I know people that do that. They'll just talk about the situation, about the issue, and about it in front of them over and over. And it's like, it's almost like re-traumatizing them.
Yeah.
If you do that,
Right.
So you don't want to do that. So the impact on them tends to fall into two categories. So the older kids have symptoms. Usually, this is the way that this is not in any way, shape, or form, written in stone. This is just a general concept of it, but everyone should really reach out to either a counselor who handles this, a therapist who's much more specific about what they do in their field with this. Get yourself some help from the community leaders that are they all getting together to try to offer support, offer counselors, and this is what they do. So you go to them for what's going on with you. I'm just giving you some general ideas to get you started. So older kids, right? So usually you'll see some symptoms of post-traumatic stress. So there's this whole language around PTSD right now where there's post-traumatic stress and then there's post-traumatic stress disorder. So I'm not going to get clinical about it, but post-traumatic stress is this, right? Like you would be, right now you would be feeling the trauma just created the stress. It just, and it's right after it, and you're going to feel it, and it's going to last, and it's going to be there.
Right.
The disorder happens when it's completely taken over. It's going on. It's become so clinical. It's interfering with your life. It's just gone into a really more serious level of what it is. But post-traumatic stress is actually it's common. It's common and it's normal. Like if you experience a car crash, you're going to have the immediate feeling of that. If you're a domestic violence victim, you're going to feel that PTS and all that. So there's a whole lot of information online about that, and there's also a whole lot of debate about it. But my area is PTSD, the disorder. So that's kind of like my area that I know more about. The post-traumatic stress I know less of, but I know enough to tell you that it's important. Like it is important. Okay. It's not that different in terms of what the symptoms are, what you can do to sort of help the person manage it and get over it and really heal and recover. Gotcha. is what you're looking at. So you'll see things like I said, the nightmares, the sleep problems, avoiding certain locations, including avoiding the school, not wanting to go back to the school because of the associated trauma, which makes sense, right? Yeah. With the younger kids, it tends to have symptoms that are a little bit less severe. Like they do more of and I don't know if you've ever noticed this with littler children, they'll withdraw. They'll stop talking. Like, depression will set in, which just looks like them sleeping and them looking sad. Yeah. The anxiety is going to be a response, obviously, because if they're involved in witnessing the community violence, like the gun violence, these are the things that you want to look for with them. It's a wide scale of emotional responses. Children are all different, but these are just the things that we sort of like keep our eye on and that we want to make sure we don't ignore. Right. What if you could say anything to these kids right now, what would you say to them?
Wow. That's tough.
So remember that the thing that they need is validation. Validation, yeah. And then also modeling and safety. Those are the things that they're needing to sort of like normalize their world right now.
Right. If I can speak to the kids, I would let them know like, hey, like this was a scary situation. It's okay to be scared. To whatever you can do to communicate with us, like just talk to us. Yeah. And wow, it's like trying to put yourself in that spot, which is so tough, but it's kind of like, okay, like I'm here for you. Like anything that you need, like I'm just here. So if you need someone to talk to, you need to help, walk you to like your classes or something tangible to where it's like they know. They want to hear I care. Yeah. You care. They want to hear that. Right.
And the tougher ones are the ones that are sort of numbed and withdrawn which is very usual after an event like that with the younger ones. They get numb, they withdraw. And so you don't want to push them, right? To start talking about something that they don't. First of all, they don't even have the language and the vocabulary to talk about this. Yeah. So we need to know that, right? But even if they did, they may not be ready to. They may not want to. It may not be something that they're even remotely interested in doing. They just sort of want to sit and numb out, Yeah. So sometimes something as simple as just sitting with them, right? Just sitting with them. If they're watching TV and their favorite show, just watch their favorite show. If they're eating, it's just the company of a safe person can be very comforting and very, so I don't think that we need to do grand gestures. I really don't, which is always what we want to do.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm like, what can I do? Like, man, yeah.
I don't think it needs to be. I think that the professionals that are managing them, that are their counselors, their therapists, their school grief counselors, all of those people, they're going to be doing the very specific things that are therapeutic, that are all of that. And if they're good at what they do, they're also going to let the adults around them understand what's going on and what they're going to give you guidance. They're going to help you figure out what the best thing to do that's going to be helpful for the child. Now, talking about that, we're going to switch over a little bit to adults for a minute.
Okay.
Because we've been talking about children a lot, and they are impacted. And I'm going to have a lot of information about children impacted indirectly, children impacted directly, and a lot of statistics and things like that you guys can go and check out the show notes and read about. Is just a lot to get into. And really what I want to kind of get into is like the coping, how do you cope with this kind of thing?
Yeah.
So let's see, what do I want to say? One of the biggest things that we can do as adults, especially parents, in the immediate aftermath is try to resume a normal routine. Again, that doesn't mean let's pretend this never happened, happy, but like the normal routine structure is going to provide them with that sense of safety, normalcy. I'm okay. Everything's kind of back to normal, but not really, So try to figure out what that is. Don't go uprooting them. Don't go changing everything around. Like try to make it as normal as you can within reason, be reasonable about it. But whatever they usually eat for dinner, whatever they usually watch at night, like just try to kind of keep that routine there, because that, that makes us feel
that makes
good.
sense. Yeah.
I think that I'm going to let the rest of this just kind of be read by people who want to read it, because I really want to get into what do we do? How do we help adults, right?
Right.
So a lot of the fallout from this, which is what I'm seeing, right, is like mothers on my feed that are all kinds of professionals, because most of the people on a lot of my feeds are professional women, professional people that are out there doing things. And a lot of them are parents, a lot of them are aunts like me, a lot of them are, cousins or whatever. And they're on my feed and they're just talking straight into the camera, like, and really you can feel it. It's palpable what they're feeling. But what I'm hearing is, how do I make this better? How do I make this better? Like that guilt, that survivor's guilt, that how do I do this? This is like partly my fault. We're the adults. They're not. So what I say to the adults is have some grace for yourself. Have some grace for yourself, because what do you and I... What can I and you and I have done to even remotely prevent that?
Yeah. That's the toughest pill to swallow right there. It's like you feel helpless. You feel helpless,
and you feel like you have no impact, because how long have we been having this? I know for me, my first experience with something so of this magnitude was when I used to live in Washington, D.C. And work down in the Capitol, that Columbine. Remember Columbine?
Yep.
That was like the big one. And that one was not just a mass shooting, but it was also an attempted bombing of the building. So it was just this. And the first time that we saw that was students on television climbing out the window. I mean, this was very traumatic to see and feel and hear and, all that. That was the first one for me. And then, of course, the history from there. But then the next impactful one for me was Sandy Hook. And I was here. I had just gotten here. I think I had been here in South Carolina for a year. And I was working at my sister's house, which is a domestic violence shelter here in the area, and I was a case manager there, and the other case managers were there, and like it just kind of came on the news, and I think it was the first one with the children that was so shocking. It was so shocking. That we were walking in the hallway and we just stopped and we all looked at each other and we just hugged for like an hour. Like, because what do you do? Like, how do you even process this fucking news? And then since then, we know. Now here we are with this.
It's just ongoing. Ongoing.
So as adults, we almost think that we can do something about these things. But the adults that can do something about this are the ones that need to do something about this, and we all know who they are.
Right.
And we're not going to get political, so we're not going to say that. But I feel like for our own mental health, we need to remind ourselves and give ourselves some grace. Like what we can handle, what we can manage is the right now, the fallout right here, the fallout right now. Like the podcast is one way, right? Let people know this is messed up and you're not alone, and we're with you, and we're fucking angry and we're pissed off. And people are going through some shit right now. And this is one of them. So when other people are acting like fools and creating nonsense
it's false narratives and
I don't
stuff,
have the patience for you. This kind of stuff is serious, and you're worried about whatever, like whatever. So with adults, give yourself some grace. understand that you're impacted by this too. I mean, we all want to act like we're not. We are.
Yeah.
This is stuff that makes us think, makes us feel, it pisses us off, it hurts us, it makes us feel for our own people, for our own community. Like it's just something that there is no way to not feel something about it. Some people will check out because it's too much for them, and that's okay. If you need to do that to take care of yourself, check out for a minute, because you don't have control over this stuff right now.
True.
You know, you don't.
Yeah.
But so the number one thing for the adults that are immediately impacted by this, so if it's someone you know, if it's someone who experienced it, if it's someone who has children somewhere else, and this is what they're dealing with, their children freaking out about other children going through this, like all of that, you know?
Yeah.
You know, just remember that the number one thing that you need to do after traumatic events like this is you got to take care of you. You need to take care. You cannot let yourself go. You got to eat the food that you need to eat, get nutrition, get your sleep, get your rest, talk to somebody, talk to your best girlfriend who you trust. You know, don't talk in front of the kids really in that way, because you have to monitor and be careful how much of this you're repeating over and over, because we don't want them to be re-traumatized, but we do want to hear them and validate them and listen to them and let them know that we're going through it too, but we're gonna do this together, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you're modeling for the children the best way to cope and manage. So make sure that you remember that, you know? And so if you're feeling like you don't want to let them see some sort of maladaptive way that you're coping, or some sort of not very good way that you're coping, try not to do it in front of them. And like, for example, some people drink, some people smoke, some people do what you don't want to model that necessarily in front of kids.
Right.
I ain't judging. We got our opinions, we got our stuff, but you know, adults are adults, right? They have their, but just be very careful what you're modeling in front of the children, because the children are going to associate that with how we cope all the time. And then you don't want that to be the message that they get for the rest of their life, you know? So be careful with your own anger, be careful with your own lashing out, you know, so that they understand that there's a much more healthy way to try to manage these really big, ugly feelings, you know? They look for us, children look for adults, to adults, for safety and security. So how adults cope with a traumatic event will influence how children will. That's really it at the end of the day.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
You know, so don't hide your emotions, just manage them. Just say stuff like we said before. Look, I'm scared. This is what's going on. This is how I feel. I'm upset. I'm angry. You know, but we're going to use our anger in a way to make things better. We're going to speak out. We're going to, you know, and give examples of people who have done that.
Right.
You have anything to say about that?
No, yeah. I'm just in my mind, I'm just trying to, like, it's hard to, I feel like the adult part, like you were saying, kind of like, you know, give like ourselves grace.
Yeah.
I feel like that's going to be so tough, because it's just like immediately we want to just be the, you know, the savior for them, and like and it makes sense, because it's like, well, I mean,
it was kind of our job.
Exactly. So it's such a, oh man, I mean, I'm just picturing, like, just, it's horrible, just imagining like being one of those parents, and and oh my gosh,
Just have some grace with yourself, and you know, there is no shame in going to speak with, there are plenty of mental health clinicians who specialize in this. They specialize in this with adults. They specialize in this with children. They are out there and they want to help. This is their calling. This is their passion, and they do a good job. They do a very good job at it. So, and right now I understand that they do have like a group of counselors out there already in motion, going to the schools, talking to everybody. But if those are not the ones you want to talk to, find yourself someone. I always have resources on my show notes and on my website that people can go to, and they can always reach out to me, and I will do what I can do to, you know, connect you to somebody that works for you where you're at. But there is no shame in it. There's no nothing in it. I'm telling you, if you were, you know, in some serious crash somewhere, I would try to get you to the right doctor, the right hospital, the right everything. It's no different. And the thing is that when we don't do that, this is how we start developing PTSD. You know, this is where it all starts to fester, you know. And again, I want to be clear, not all people who experience or hear about a traumatic event will develop psychological distress. A lot of people don't, you know, a lot of people do. You know, but following any incident of mass violence, you know, there can be a direct and indirect effect in your overall functioning.
Right.
That doesn't mean that you have PTSD. Okay, that doesn't mean that you will get PTSD. But there are signs to watch out for just in case. And it may not be the disorder, but you might have post-traumatic stress, which that is normal. That is a normal response to a traumatic event. So just keep that in mind. Know that there are a lot, and in my show notes I explained the difference between both of those things and what you can do and everything if you need some, and the symptoms of secondary trauma stress, which is a whole thing that nobody talks about. But these symptoms are like, usually this applies to healthcare workers, teachers, social workers, people who are not the direct victims, but they're the ones, the humanitarian workers. They're the ones around them. So it's sort of like a secondary trauma that we go through. And, but it's kind of the same symptoms. You have intrusive thoughts, chronic fatigue, sadness, anger, poor concentration, second guessing, detachment is a big one, emotional exhaustion. Lord, I felt that a million times. Fearfulness, shame, physical illness, and then absenteeism. So you see them, they start missing work and missing work. These are all things that are very, very normal. Don't freak out about it, but you should talk to somebody. They resolve. If they don't resolve, then take the next step. They will tell you what the next step is to take about that, but don't ignore these things. Which men try to do. That's right.
No, that's
I said it.
Yeah, no, that's
Don't
a
do
fact.
it.
That's a fact.
So I'm just going to really quickly go over some recommendations for coping. I'm just going to highlight them. They have a little bit more detail for each number. I'm not going to get into the detail. I'm just going to give the highlight of them, but you can read the show notes for the details. So number 1, decrease your exposure to news and social media coverage of the event. I don't know how many times I feel like I'm on autopilot with that.
100%.
How many times have you heard me say that? Could you just not be on social media and news? Like, could you just not? Why are you consuming so much content? This is not good for you.
Not at all.
These are the signs. Right? So if you can do that, it's one thing to stay informed. That's important, but limit. Your reactions are normal. Take a break.
Right.
Give your brain a chance to sort of like reset itself.
100%. 100%.
All right. Do not engage in the whole mental health stigma nonsense. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't fucking do it. And if there's somebody around you doing that, minimizing the importance of mental health, deflecting from it, making fun of it, anything to that effect, that's not your friend. That person does not love you. If they are sitting around you, making you feel any kind of way when you're trying to take care of your mental health, or somebody around you or somebody near you wants you to take care of your mental health, and they intervene with the whole negative shit and twist it and turn it to feed. Those people don't love you, because when you love a person, you don't interfere with that. You tell them,
right,
maybe this might be a good idea. Maybe you go do it on your own over there, and they don't need to know you do, like, but you don't make it a thing and pretend like you don't need it and they don't need it. And if I tell you how many times I heard that nonsense. All right. And then the next one is, connect with your support network. We all have a support network. Some of us prefer to have a small, sort of exclusive little, you know what I'm saying? Other people have a big social network. It really doesn't matter, but the people that you feel good around, that you feel safe around, that make you, kind of get out of the funk, get out of the thoughts. Those are your people right now. That's your tribe right now. Reach out to them. And if they're going to be good for you, then those are the people you want to be around. And if you don't have a network, there's plenty of legitimate, healthy support networks, but you got to go through the right, like, don't go online and join like the angry mob, group and be on there banting negative, nasty, ugly stuff all the time. That is not the way to do it. Those are not the people I want you to connect with. I want you to connect with the people who are self-reflecting, who are processing, who are dealing, who are supporting each other, who are working through this in a really healthy way. Check in with your kids. Check in with the children around you. We all have one. Like, we all have the neighbor, the cousin, the person. And even if they weren't in any way associated with this last situation, we don't know how that child might be affected anyway, right? So just check in. Check in and say, man, how you doing? This stuff is going on. It's okay if you feel some kind of way. Just check in with them. And then as an adult, engage in positive self-care. Listen, I don't know how many times Victoria and Lisa and I have said this. Self-care is not a pedicure. and getting your hair done.
Oh, right.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, and it does make you feel good and whatever, but you don't have to spend money for self-care. You're not supposed to, not the mental health kind of self-care.
Right.
Self-care is internal. It is to help you feel better inside. It has to come from the inside. It doesn't come from the outside. It doesn't come from a new pair of shoes where you just went to 8, you had 12 drinks with your girlfriend. That's great. That's nice. That's not what we're talking about. That's more like pampering. Pampering is good.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Right.
But that is not what I'm talking about with self-care.
Yeah.
Self-care stuff is, rest. If you're tired, rest. If you need to exercise a little bit, because that helps your mental health big time. Eat healthy. Don't eat a whole bunch of junk food that's going to just make your body not be able to,
Right.
you know that.
No,
You're a big fitness guy, so you know.
100%.
Try to give your body a break with the stress. Try to minimize the amount of stress that your body is subjected to. How many times do we see that? People are stressed out and then they go looking for, it's like they are addicted to the stress, to the adrenaline, to the, to all that. Do you know that? Do you see that?
I see that so much. Oh my goodness.
I'm like, no, I that drama and all that and that stress, and I am not addicted to that. And it makes me feel some kind of way when you bring it like back all the way the fuck back with that, okay?
Yes.
Like all the way back.
I got to.
Don't bring your mess over here.
No.
But do activities that you enjoy and you find relaxing. For me, it's gardening. I'm in my old lady stage, right? Like, if I could have chickens, I would have chickens, in my backyard. But no, I mean, there's just something therapeutic about the process. It also makes me feel sort of like in commune with my dad and my mom who loved it, and my family and my grandma and everything. It's just something about it, and the birds and the bees and everything.
Right.
I'm not saying everybody needs to like that. But there are other things. There's reading. There's exercising.
Yeah.
There's really good podcasts out there, not junk, but really good. There's really good videos and streaming and games. And this is just a lot of little things that everybody can do. Play cards, play dominoes.
Yep.
My favorite, which helps me, and I'm not saying that it's for everybody, but for me, like there's a women's shelter around the corner from here that I've forever been like every Sunday taking them food, because that's the day that you can go and drop off food, whether it's cooked or whether it's canned or whatever, for the ladies that are there. The guests is what they're called.
Yeah.
Or, you do some free mental health education stuff for them, or, you just check in with them. If this is in your neighborhood, go check it out, go figure out how you can help.
Yeah.
That always makes me feel good. And it makes me go like I'm doing something important. And that makes me feel better than going shopping and spending $200 on some stupid shit.
Yeah. Right.
But whatever works for people, limit your alcohol consumption, and problematic behaviors when these kind of things are going on. It's real easy, to want to go do all that. Limit your overeating, your reckless spending, your gambling, your sexing even, because we use that a lot,
Yeah.
Just limit it. Just find ways to soothe your feelings. That's the way that you're going to heal and recover.
Yeah.
You were talking about journaling before when we were talking, and that's a great way. Like, the science is there. It's like it helps your brain.
Yeah.
It helps your brain.
All right.
When you journal and you write, and it's just for you, you can rip it up, you can tear it up, you can burn it. I don't care.
Whatever. Yeah.
But the exercise of writing it out with your hand, and it doesn't even have to make sense. You just get it all out and you dump it.
Right.
And it gives your brain a break. It gives it a respite.
Yeah.
So the hand tends to be much more effective than typing, but I say whatever works.
Oh, yeah. Whatever works. Whatever works, for sure.
And men... Okay, we're going to say this. Don't be embarrassed about it. Journaling is not just a chick thing.
No, yeah, no.
You do it, don't you?
I done, yep. And this just takes me back to when I was a kid, and I would see, like, when I was a kid, I would see girls have diaries, and that was always a big thing. And I was asking, like, yo, what's the guy version of that? Because I want to, write down my thoughts. I had most of my family is women, so I would like see them writing there. I'm like, I want my own little thing. And it was a show when I was a kid that sparked it. It
gave you permission, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a cartoon when I was a kid. I used to watch. It was called Doug, and after every episode, he would write what he learned in that day. He was like, "My day started out like this," and at the end of every episode, well, I guess I learned that sometimes you have to let things go and things to figure itself out. And he would do that after every episode. That was my main. I'm going to the store, give me my composite journal.
All right.
That's it.
The dollar store's your friend.
That's right. Yep.
That is the greatest thing. I am so glad you said that. I am so glad you said that, because the thing about journaling is that it is about self-reflecting. It doesn't have to be like this glamorous thing. It just can be, why am I in such a freaking funk today? What the hell happened? You know, like, well, man, you know, so-and-so just rubbed me the wrong way today. But, you know, and then like when you're done writing and getting it all out, it's a way of self-reflecting. It's a way of processing. It's a way of separating the junk thinking from the real important stuff that you need to pay attention to. So it's very healing. It's very therapeutic. And there's no right way to do it.
Right.
It's different for everybody. Do it in whatever way. And it's personal. It's for you.
Yeah, 100%.
You know?
Yep.
And what I said earlier about getting involved, that helps me, you know, getting involved in things. But like engaging in positive activities like group discussions. Right. Campus events for the people who, you know, are in schools, spiritual activities, you know, positive community action. And it helps channel your reactions to these kinds of events, and it offers you a chance to engage with other people who are thinking the same way, but want to do something positive about it instead of like, let's just go rampage, you know? Right. And then the last one is seek professional support if you have to. Not everybody feels comfortable seeing a therapist. That's fine. But, you know, having some expertise in managing trauma, it goes a long way. It really, really does. Yeah. Trauma responses are what they are, you know, and supporting healthy coping skills can really provide significant relief in a short amount of time, you know, and that's better than these long-lasting effects that these things have, because they will show up. Right. And that's really it. So I have some more on here about managing stressors and other school-related, you know, issues. I really do get into in my show notes about why you should not blame mental illness on this. This is just an increasingly common public opinion that somehow every time these massacres happen, we should blame mental illness as a fundamental cause. Is pure bullshit. The science is not there. The research does not show that. This is not the case. There's a very small percentage of this, but it's more complicated than I care to go into right now. So it's in my show notes. Go to the show notes. You can read all about it, and then you can refer to all the studies, all the references, and everything out. Yeah. The other thing that I do want to say is that I have a lot of resources listed. I'm not going to go through them here on air, but on the show notes, just go all the way down if you don't want to read the show notes and go to where it's highlighted for resources. Work-Life Connections is one of them. If you have an EAP program at work, that's your employee assistance program. It's confidential, no cost. Let them do some brief counseling, some coaching, you know, they'll refer you, just see them. National Center for PTSD is free. Go online, read in there, see if that resonates with you. That might be able to help. And then the American Psychological Association, in the aftermath of a shooting, they have a great resource for that. Again, it's on my show notes. And if you don't feel like doing that, just reach out to me. You can do that through my website, which is, you know, on the podcast information, or just look for Xiomara A. Sosa online. I will pop up, and you can just send me a message, and I'll do what I can. And that's really it. We're going to wrap it up here because this is a heavy subject, and there's a lot to be said about it. But I think fundamentally we're trying to get to here, right, JRoc, is that it affects all of us. We all feel some kind of way about it. Yeah. We all need to go home tonight and be like, damn. And process it and feel it, and, you know, prayers and hearts and everything, that's great, but that's not the answer, man. No, that's really not the answer. And I'm hoping, let's see what the next the next 4 years brings, and if there's changes in that. But we love our kids, and I'm just really hoping that something changes. Something changes, so. You know, and I guess we'll find out more about this shooter, and, you know, I might do a little episode on this whole situation with these kids and how this comes about, and what to look out for, how to support them, how to intervene, if that's even possible. Right. But, you know, like, just put some humanity to it and see, like, why would a 13, 14-year-old, you know, like, do something like that? Like, there's something fundamentally being missed there. Yeah. And no, it's not mental illness. Not that we know of. In the future, that might come out, and I will stand corrected. This is not what it appears to be to me based on what I've seen. This is other things that are not good and maladaptive and problematic. But mental illness is not it. So, like, we need to educate people about that a little bit more. Yeah. All right, JRoc, what do you think? Time to wrap it up?
Yeah, I think this was another great episode. And again, I'm learning so much from
Really?
from being on this podcast with you, because I'm telling you, because like the PTS versus PTSD,
yeah,
like that's something that I never really quite understood. So I'm glad that you made mention of this in your in the show notes. So I'm definitely gonna be clicking on it, because
it's very very interesting. And then there's like a whole diagnosis that we can do now, as opposed to, you know, diagnosing somebody with something so complicated like PTSD or, you know, any of the other acute stress disorder things, and is called adjustment disorder. And adjustment disorder, it sounds like it's a disorder, it's really not. But adjustment disorder is something that we like to use more because it makes more sense. So if I, for example, like me, I'm going to just use myself as an example. My mom died, then my father died, and then there was like this whole big nonsense that happened, you know, like the family. And I really, really, really was so beyond distressed with what I was seeing and just trying to mourn my father, just so many changes and adjustments that I had to make. So I was diagnosed, the VA therapist, he diagnosed me with adjustment disorder, which I often use with my clients before I go into like the big things. And the reason is because what that does is it normalizes what you're going through. Of course you feel this way right now. This big ugly thing just happened, or these things just happened. This is a major adjustment.
Yeah.
Your father's gone, your mother's gone, this is going on, that's going on, this, you know, all these big things are going on. This is a major adjustment, and you need some help. You need some help in just managing it and getting it right. So it gives you a chance to, first of all, be like, okay, well then it's normal. I have somebody professional checking me out to make sure it stays normal. So it's like a 6-month thing. So like between the time you go in and 6 months later, it should be resolving. You should be better. Things should be going in the right direction, so that you're not going backwards and you're not going under. You're going forward. And 6 months is just, so it allows you permission to go through the thing for 6 months without getting the big one, which is, you know, major depressive disorder or something else, or PTSD or something else. So PTS, I think that's what they're trying. That was the original sort of thinking behind, but there was a lot of arguing and stuff amongst ourselves about it. You know? But in the DSM, the actual diagnosis is PTSD. Like that's the one that's under my wheelhouse. That's the one that I use. But in general, clinicians can use and medical doctors can use PTS, because really that's what it is. It's, the stressor is coming from this immediate trauma.
100%.
All right, you know.
For sure.
So we're gonna sign off. Thank you. I'm glad you're learning, because that's the point, right?
Yeah. No, I'm open. I'm an open mind. I'm like just getting this information in. It's like, oh, okay. I was thinking wrong for like a good bit of my time.
And like, why wouldn't you? And it's what I like about the way we do our podcast is that it doesn't feel like you're being lectured about a subject, because you're not going to be a clinician. So what do you need to know all the clinical stuff for? It's relatable, it's down to earth, and it's a people thing, like all people. Like this is all happening to everybody. This doesn't require, you know, a master's degree like I have to understand it. But it's nice to have the language to be able to sort of switch to regular terms and be able to talk to people about it and have them understand it. And that's what Lisa and I and Victoria really like envisioned. Like, can we just have regular conversations about this so people know what we're talking about?
Exactly.
And that's what we're doing.
There we go.
All right, everybody. We're going to wrap it up now. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your mental health. Good night. Thanks for listening to the X Podcast with me, Xiomara Sosa, clinical mental health counselor, licensed professional counselor here in South Carolina. We hope you enjoy our real conversations about all things related to mental health. You can check out our show notes for reference, resources, and other show-related information. If you found value in our conversation, we encourage you to join us weekly as we discuss different mental health topics. You can head over to the X Podcast website at www.studiotalkpodcast.net and send us a message from there, as well as sign up for our newsletter. Our email address is studiotalkmentalhealth@gmail.com. You can also subscribe to our podcast and leave us a rating and review at blueberry.com/studiotalkmentalhealth. And send us a text or call us at area code 843-695-9974. Please recommend our podcast to your friends, colleagues, family, and networks. Thanks for supporting us.